Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm just kind of wiped out. What you'll hear about this is a pre-introduction. So I did an introduction this morning to this video. And then on Monday, or Sunday, I read some comments about the Trumpers. And today I am covering the Trump meltdown. It's going to be a two-parter. Like, I have so much stuff to get to, and I'm not going to get to all of it. And I get to a variety of comedians, Andrew Schultz, and a little bit from Shane, whatever his name is, for the guy from Tires. Both those guys are from the show Tires, which is a good show on Netflix, funny show. And some Tucker Carlson and all these other people, Trumpers and Trump himself. And then I was copying something from a Caitlin Clark thing I saw last night. I copied it on the TV, and it was Candace Owens. And because of that, right after I copied that, I was going shopping. And, we just were traveling Monday, so I'm kind of tired and just fucking wiped. And Candace Owens' whole video, and I've never watched a Candace Owens video before, and, it pops up. And so I was listening to that in the car while I was going shopping. And Candace Owens is smart, and she's got some good stuff. I'm not a hater. Like, I'll listen to these things. Most of the time, it has no value to me other than entertainment, like passing the time, things that my wife and I will listen to, podcasts when I travel. Once in a while, there's something in there new that I hear, something that I didn't think of myself, something like that. And I like funny stuff, jokes and whatever. So I think jokes that are, topical. So this isn't me being a hater and telling, this all on my show is so much better than theirs, what I'm about to say. Like, I don't care. It doesn't fucking matter. But what I realize when I'm watching these other people and other truthers, it's like, making me stupider and bringing me down to a lower level of consciousness, right? Now, again, this isn't bragging. This is not, I don't give a shit about any of this stuff. And I used to care about it in the beginning, but now it's just like, whatever. Being right or being ahead of the game or being a visionary or these things, these things are just characteristics. And for me, it's definitely a God-given gift that I wouldn't have otherwise. Or maybe I've earned it, maybe I haven't, but if it wasn't for God, this stuff wouldn't be the case. Again, not a religion, because religion, you won't be able to get this level. It has to be, with you interacting with the divinity within you. And so what I realize is that there's certain things they say that I might not have thought of, and there's certain things that I can tell are really good for their audience, and they care about these things in a way that I don't. And so the Candace Owens, she's really good at doing these things. People have said she does this really great job of showing the French prime minister's wife is a president, or prime minister's wife is a man, things like this. And, I don't give a shit about any of those things. I used to cover them, but I never cared that much about them. But people do. Like, I could make my channel just about Jeffrey Epstein, and I feel like I would do better coverage in various ways than these other people. But the reason I would do better coverage is that I can't do that. Like, I don't give a shit about it. It's stupid. And it's just something that people care about, and it has no real value at all, right? I mean, the one thing that Trump said that was terrible for his viewers, his worshipers, his cult members to hear, is true, but it's not true because of, like, he's not on the right side of truth. He's avoiding something. But why are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein, right? And so, for example, Candace Owens was saying that the Republican Party and Trump's handlers who are from Israel are all scrambling to, and I'll get to this, I'll show you some of her clip later on, I'll analyze it. But I'm just giving this as an example now. Are scrambling and are in panic mode. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know that, and that just is goofy what you're saying. Like, you're just not there, right? There's a lot of things that are said by these people that I thought, and I was interested in, or I was realizing 15 years ago. Back when I thought this stuff was important. I thought my job was important. I thought that, I was getting out the truth or whatever I thought about myself, back in 2015 when I started doing this and my channel popped, and I was getting feedback from people. I'm like, oh, wow, this is important. The only thing that's really important on my channel is the stuff about divinity, and nobody gives a shit about that, so it's not important because it really doesn't have much of an audience. A few people, but not significant enough to make a, whatever. If it's one person, that's good enough. If one person has a change of an understanding about God and divinity within them, that's more than enough. This channel's totally worth it. And there are many people who claim that that's the case. I can't speak for them, but they say it in the comment section. And I'm saying this now so people can sort of realize, the differences. And not that I got to sell you on my channel, because the few people that watch my channel, this is, a couple thousand now, already probably kind of get a sense of this, right? But here are the differences between my channel and these people's. And of course, there's different levels within all these channels that I'm going to show you. John Story ends up talking about, I got a little clip of that, brief clip, of him saying it's just like WWE, which is something I said, 6 months ago when Trump did the fake assassination attempt. But they won't go to the Trump assassination attempt. Candace Owens and these people who back Trump, Tucker Carlson, they come from a standpoint that Trump is still somehow better than Obama and the Democrats. So, that's the first flaw. That's the first flaw. But anybody who's a truther, who sees what Trump is and what he's doing, and still thinks he's better, right? Still thinks he's worth your vote because Kamala would have been so much worse. That's just, what are you talking about? There's nobody worse than this guy. Not that Kamala is better. There's no better, right? In this situation, there is no better, right? There's no hero. There's no savior. The system shouldn't be saved. That's something that I know here. The system in itself is demonic. It goes against the will of God. Only from the standpoint that maybe this had to happen. Sometimes you got to make a wrong choice to appreciate the right choice. Sometimes you have to take a wrong turn to be grateful for the, you have to fall before you can ask God to pull you back up. You have to have some arrogance. You have to be a punk for a little bit. You have to lose your way. You have to be a dumb fuck. And then you have your, spiritual awakening. And humanity collectively. We have to go through our stupidity. We have to learn our lessons. Just like every kid, has to, touch something hot that burns their hands so they don't have to do that anymore, right? Just like every animal has to get stung by a bee or squirted by a skunk to realize you don't fuck with those things, right? Only from that standpoint that you could say there's sort of a divine plan here. An allowance of experimentation by God collectively, that we all have a usury-based, demonic, materialistic system that's based in illusion and lies and away from the divine truth. It takes us away from what we were designed to do, takes us away from the divinity within us. And that system is fucked. It's always fucked. And before you know it, we're going to be dependent on it like we are. And now we're 100% dependent on a demonic system. And it's crumbling, and people don't want to hear what I have to say about that. They want to hear that Trump is somehow better, and they want to hear that there's a solution. Because, they know there isn't, but they just want somebody to fucking lie to them. And Candace Owens and these other people, they do that. They maybe lie to themselves, maybe they don't, maybe they know, maybe they don't. Who knows? They're smarter than their audience. But they pander to dumb fucks, and they shill stuff. They have their advertisers. Candace Owens got 1.3 million views on this fucking video, right? That was out Monday. And so, which is great for her, but it's dumb fucks watching it, because her saying that the Trump world is in panic. There's another principle that I have. The first thing that I say, and I don't always say this out loud to you, but it's always there with me. Why did they release this Epstein file? There's a bunch of whys in this behavior. Why did they all put out, including Donald Trump's son? You'll see from these clips that I show you, and you've probably seen them already, but Kash Patel, Donald Trump's son, Pam Bondi, Dan Bonagino, these other people, they're all, let's go get Jeffrey Epstein. Let's get to the bottom of this. And then, of course, all these pundits that were all in on this, right? Laura Loomer was trying to blame Pam Bondi. I'm not going to show you that clip, but she's a shill for Israel, and she wants to make it Pam Bondi's fault. She calls her Pam Blondie. And Candace Owens read that tweet from Laura Loomer, all these people, right? And so, but they're all saying that they wanted Jeffrey Epstein files out. Trump never said it. Trump was definitely like, yeah, maybe we'll do that. We'll see that clip again. I've showed you that before in a video about a month ago. I already covered this long before they released it, because I was looking for some other bullshit thing that Trump did. I found that, and I thought that was suspicious. But Trump has never been all in on Jeffrey Epstein, right? But all these other people were. And they promised their voters, and I don't know if even half Trump was going to win no matter what. They didn't think they could win the Democrats, I don't know, but they definitely weren't trying to win. And they were either told to stand down. Trump was winning that election. Like I said before, he was being persecuted and prosecuted. I said, when I see him behind bars and he's not able to run for president, or he doesn't get elected and he's in jail, then talk to me. Other than that, they're not getting rid of this asset. The Democratic Party, the controllers, the media, Trump was their number one asset. We live in the age of Trump for the past 10 years. I said it over and over again. And I was right about that, like all these other things, because I don't have preferences like these other people do. I don't give a shit. Like I'm not, it doesn't matter to me. So I can just say what I see. And that doesn't, I don't care. I'm not emotionally attached to it, right? But in terms of them being panicked, like Candace Owens said, why did they say, first of all, yeah, we're going to get the Jeffrey Epstein files out? And why did they release them? Like, this was a bad thing, and you're going to hear me say this later on in this video. There's two things, right? Whereas this is going to be repetitive, but it's worth saying again later, which for you is in the future, for me is in the past, which is always interesting. But, they were either going to take the heat from their base and look like hypocrites for denying all the shit they already said, and just coming in saying, yeah, he committed suicide and whatever, he's innocent, all these things. That this thing was all bullshit from the beginning. After doing all that shit with the laptop from hell and all the things that Trump was interested in looking into and getting out there, that they finally release these things or don't release them and said it's nothing, it's a nothing burger. They knew there was going to be fallout, right? So is that the reason? Is it a distraction? Right? What are the reasons that we're seeing this? What's the reasons for this happening? Or is the reason that they are doing this because if they told you the truth, it would be so much worse than you flipping out about not hearing the truth? So, those are the kind of choices on the table, right? But who's to say they didn't do this intentionally? It's not part of their fucking plan. That they just didn't randomly release this. And, it didn't have to be released at all. They could have just said, we're busy with other things, right? When all the people were saying, when are you going to release the Epstein files? Because they already put out a couple of duds with RFK and these other things. And so people already know that they were full of shit, right? But the Epstein one is the one they cared about the most. So, maybe they did this to burn Trump. Maybe they did. Whatever reason they did it, we don't know. But we know that they didn't have to. They didn't have to release this thing. They didn't have to do it. It was never something they had to release. It was not part of their job. And they go back on their promises all the time. They could have said, no, or just kicked it down the road. They didn't even have to say we're not going to release it. They could just ignore those things. It's chaos anyway with everything that's going on. There's enough bullshit going on that they don't need to release the Epstein files. They could have just held on to them. They could have waited till the end of Trump's term. They could have waited till next year. But they did it knowing that it was going to cause fucking outrage. And that Trump's base was going to go fucking bullshit, right? And so all these other people don't think about that. Why did they release it now? Why did they release it at all? What's the goal, right? This didn't happen where it was a leak. This was something where they just, all right, let's go ahead and tell them that they're full of shit. Let's go tell the people that this is their people, many of their number one issue, the reason they voted for Trump, that they're full of shit and there's no conspiracy here. And, just knuckle under and go along with Trump's terrorists, right? Which inflation is now hit again, and it's the worst in 4 months, and that's going to do whatever, right? Because these are other things that are going to start happening. Trump's going bullshit on the terrorists again, and things are starting to implode. And Trump can never admit he's wrong, and never apologize, and so he's in a situation where all these people that he said were great and loved him and endorsed him. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and the rest, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Laura Loomer, and all these other people are now, saying shit about Pam Bondi, but also some of them saying shit about Trump. And Trump fucked this thing up, and so does his administration, so why? Again, this wasn't something they had to release, and they did it anyway. The other piece to this, Candace Owens saying that the Trump administration's in panic, this isn't going to last forever. He might lose the base, but what difference does it make? Does that mean he loses the Senate and the House? Well, yeah, maybe like they're not, now that Trump's base isn't there, and Trump, whatever, but Trump's base, they all have this idea that he's still better than Obama. So where the fuck are they going to go, right? They're not going to come towards my direction and realize that it doesn't fucking matter because the system's fucked and it's demonic, and we're on fucking, there's no savior coming, because they don't want to hear that. Back when I made a video called 95% chance that Michelle Obama, Serena Williams, and Jennifer Aniston are all men. Again, not my greatest video, but it had some good things in it. I got 2 million views, and YouTube stopped it. Like, they stopped it from, they suppressed the views. It would have gotten 12 whatever million views, right? And my videos are much better than that now. My videos that got the most views, part of that was YouTube used to recommend those videos, but how many people were able to watch something about Michelle Obama being possibly a dude? How many people, even Democrats, right? Just as a goof. But how many people want to hear that there's divinity within you, and that's your true purpose, and we'll get into that in a moment, and these other things that I say, and that there's no hope for the system? How many people want to hear that? Almost nobody. And so that's, but that's the truth of it. So other than that, they're just carrying out this deception and focusing. Why the fuck do you care about Jeffrey Epstein at this point? You're never going to get to the bottom. You're never going to get to the truth. And, and I mean, there's other things going on. Why is it okay all of a sudden to criticize Israel? It used to be community guideline stuff. It used to be, you couldn't do it. And now everybody's doing it. Everybody's drawing connections between Israel and, we get into this. I'll talk about this more in the video that you're about to see, so we don't need to cover it here. But there's these questions that have to be answered. Like Candace Owen was saying that her and Tucker Carlson are in Israel's shit list and they're going after her. And I like, yeah, but, they used to not let you talk about it at all. So why is it okay now, right? So these are the things that are coming out. Jeffrey Epstein being a Mossad agent. These are the things that are being talked about and are openly out there. And part of it is because you can't do shit about it. Like, you can't, well, you're going to get upset. All right, well, you're going to have a little tantrum. You're going to have a little protest. And then you're going to run back to Trump when you realize, Gavin Newsom is the alternative or whatever, the Democrats or whatever it is. Very few people leave him completely because, again, this false assumption that somehow one guy could be better than the other. That the Democrat can be better than the Republican can be better than the Democrat. It's clearly that neither one can be better because they're just alternatives to a controlling system that's already planned out and is already, based in deception, and they're doing everything possible to keep a dying system alive. And both sides have to fucking do some really bad shit to do that and make that happen. There was some other shit I really thought about and I forgot it already, so whatever. If I come back up, I'll talk about it in a future video. But let's get to the main thing that's different about my channel and what I do here. And again, this isn't like me like saying how great I am or whatever, because it's kind of the opposite. And this is a reliance on God and God's participation, but also the awareness that your ego is not in control. And that's the real big thing here. Like Trump and all these people, they try to make you seem like they're in control of the world and what's going to happen, and they're not. Like, this is, I call them controllers because they want to control, and it's kind of mocking them because they can't. Because God's always in control. There's always a divine plan. And, oftentimes you do things thinking that you want to do them, but it's something that's already pre-programmed in your destiny, and you're performing a role or a service that is part of the divine play, and so that's already scripted and on a level that you don't understand. And so when you are participating in that way and you understand that, it's best that you find out what God wants you to do and just fucking do it, right? Don't be a fucking dick and just an egotistical fucking narcissist that's like, oh, I'm gonna find, I'm gonna try to do my own shit, because you're gonna end up doing it either way, right? Maybe not now, but in the future. And why be a little oppositional, defiant little fucking prick, little brat, and fight off what, your inevitable purpose. Accepting your soul's path and doing it willingly, even when you don't like it. Like, that's something that I've realized over and over again that I had to do, and it's just made my life better. Trying to working towards accepting, seeing and accepting what God wants me to do. because it should be obvious to everyone you're not in control. Because all the things that you've wanted and been disappointed and not gotten, and all the things that you wanted and did get and they still disappointed you because they weren't good, they didn't make you feel good. Those are the two overwhelming evidence that you're not in control, right? How many people would die if they had a choice? If you were in control, you wouldn't die, right? And you wouldn't suffer, right? And how many people suffer? Everybody. And so if you were in control, your ego was in control, you wouldn't die, you wouldn't suffer. You would have everything that you want. And if you did have everything you want, you'd be miserable, because people who get what they want are often miserable. Most of the time they end up miserable. And so, that you wouldn't be miserable if you got what you want. If you were in control, you would be happy with when you got what you want, right? And maybe initially you are, but eventually you're miserable. You feel disconnected. Some of the people who are the most successful and materially are the loneliest people. And they're caught in a trap because they can't give up what they have, wealth and fame. They can't give it up. But they want to, and they know it's hurting them, but they can't. It's like an addiction. And so, like all the other things, like addictions and things and compulsions and things that people do, but they don't want to do them, but they know they're not good for them, but they still do them. These are all evidence that you're not in control. You're not in control of any of these things. Trump is in control. The government is in control. You're not in control. And so, a lot of these things are, part of a destiny that's based in your samskaric, these impressions you take from life to life. And they're just going to play out whatever way they play out. And you just got to be grateful for it, because ultimately there's a reason you're going through these things. It's a blessing from God. And you just think about that in a positive way. And then all these things make sense, right? That you have some kind of soul's path. And nobody wants to hear that because people's egos are run amok. But you're not, you're going in the wrong direction and you fucking know it. And you feel like shit about it and you still fucking do it. My wife and I were talking to somebody who got the vax and had a heart issue. And we started to recommend some other things, and she was kind of open to it, but you could tell she wasn't going to do any of them. We weren't recommending them, just information, because and this person realized that the vax caused a heart issue. We have talked to a few people who realized either they or a family member suffered from the vax, like that was their realization, but they weren't willing to do all other stuff, right? And so, when I show you all these people, all of them are saying things that I said years ago, and things that, I knew I wasn't going to get the vax 15, 20 years ago. When this thing came around, and, in the future, which I was kind of maybe slightly aware about, more recently. So people had told me that I made a video 2 years ago saying there's going to be a pandemic because Bill Gates, or somebody had said something. I said, they're telling you what they're going to do. And somebody pointed out to the video. I went back and found it, and I showed everybody. But I had forgot about it because, I had already made my decision. When I learned about what they do, what they are, and, my kids didn't get them. I mean, their whole childhood. And, I was against them. I don't think they were, I'm into alternative health. And so I already knew. Like, I already knew a bunch of these things because of, other people, or, truther stuff, or, divine, the meditation that I do. And I've been saying these things years before these other people in a different way. And yet people are going to run to them because they're saying something that I won't, which is that there's still some hope and some chance, right? But, these people are definitely on a lower level of understanding of these things because they say stupid shit that isn't close to the truth and, these ideas that they're pushing out there. But people are going to want that because people want to be fucking lied to. And so, humanity shouldn't survive, right? Because of the overwhelming resistance to the fucking truth, right? The ego's doing everything in its power to retain the illusion of control and not embracing its soul's path and thwarting the will of God and embracing a demonic system that everybody knows is bad for them, but they can't imagine living without it. And so with that in mind, let's get to the other introduction and the rest of this stuff here. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's Tuesday, July 15th, and I'm kind of underwater a little bit. I got all this stuff to deal with. My wife and I just returned from traveling. I put out a video about a possible community, and I'm getting follow-up news about that. I'm going to make a follow-up video about that. Follow-up news. News about that it's going to affect that kind of thing a little bit. And I have this big thing with MAGA turning on Trump. Now, I have some comments of people who are MAGA people, and these are important, whatever, for my channel kind of stuff. So I'm going to put the voiceover stuff first, and then get into all the stuff that MAGA people are saying, and just some comedians and all this stuff, right? It's kind of a lot of stuff to put together. I got all these clips. My wife and I were listening to some of these things on the way home, too. So there's this stuff, and so I've had a computer glitch out already. So it's the whole day is kind of effed up. Just saying. But here's the voiceovers I did yesterday, and then when they're done, I'll get into this stuff with the MAGA faithful and Trump having their fallout. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's Sunday, July 13th, but I will be, I don't know what I'm going to do. In terms of putting this video, this might go on the end of my video that I make on Tuesday, or that'll be go up on Tuesday. I'm not sure. So I'm making a video on Tuesday. This is going to be in the beginning, for Tuesday, I think. That'll be up on Tuesday. This will be either in the beginning or the end, and you'll know which, and I don't know which as I say this. And I just had a few comments to get to. These are Trumper comments. So this is the first one here. This isn't necessarily a bad comment, but a person writes, I have friends who have said F anyone who didn't vote or voted for Trump. I stood up to not taking the vax, but I'm not at the point where I don't want to vote. Yet I feel like voting is my duty. I have friends who are Jehovah's Witnesses. They are politically neutral, but I don't have a rationale for telling my family why I don't want to vote, and I end up feeling guilty for how I voted or didn't vote every single time, and the system seems to be designed this way. Hence the saying, which I often hear, you voted for this. Thank you for this video. Everybody has to indoctrinate themselves. Unindoctrinate? I just made that up. But, reverse their indoctrination and programming. Everyone has to do that to whatever culture you live in, even if it's a good culture. You're going to have biases. You're going to have things that aren't truth, that aren't reality. Things in your family, right? Like people do weird shit in their family, and they have no idea it's weird until they start seeing other families or they start doing those things. And, the people on the outside start looking at you and saying, that's fucking weird, right? Like one story I often tell is I had some kind of a cold sore or something. Maybe I was sick. I was blowing my nose a lot or something like that. And I had something like, whatever it was, my mom took Neosporin and put it on my upper lip underneath my nose, a huge glob of Neosporin. And she said not to wipe it off because I was a good, obedient fucking kid. And, I didn't know my mom was incompetent. And, she proved it over and over again. And my dad was even worse. And I went to school with a big wad of Neosporin that looked very much like a booger in elementary school. And I'll never do that again. Or I didn't do that again, right? That's when I started to realize that whatever my parents were telling me to do, whatever they were, I had this realization. It was a good thing. That I couldn't really trust my parents to, if my mom was going to put a big wad of something that looked like a booger on my face, I had to rethink things and just not blindly allow my parents to tell me to do stuff because, they were incompetent, they weren't cool, and, whatever. But, if they want you to vote, and voting is oftentimes a hassle. You have to drive to some polling place. It might be a line, might be crowded. And when you're into it, like if you really like the candidate and you're into America and you're into the politics and you're like, into it, well, yeah, it's a great thing. And I'm not saying people should vote or not vote because it's inconsequential. Your vote means nothing unless it's local politics. And, you have to get into local politics and all that stuff, right? But local politics is the only real place where it makes a difference because, we already know what happens when the Democrats and Republicans hold the federal government, are charging the federal government. And that's the stuff that gets the news media, and that's the stuff that has a drama, is interesting, but it has no relevance. It has no, has no bearing on your vote has no bearing on any of it, right? And so it's silly, to think that it's important because it's not. You can do it, but, it's just a matter of whether you feel like wasting your time and energy. And your ability to affect the outcome is less than it is for you to win the lotto. You have a better chance of winning the lotto than your vote has of affecting the outcome, right? Because either way, a Democrat or Republican's going in, and either way they're going to do what they're told to do, and either way the country's going to go to shit because that's what's happening. So there's just people have to just think about things this way. Like, this is my indoctrination. Like, this person's struggling not to vote. I mean, you don't have to vote, right? You can vote if you want, but you don't have to. Like, there's no, it's a completely a volunteer type of situation, and it has no bearing on the outcome of the election. Anyways, this is the more important comment, not in terms of important, but in terms of me letting into, this is a Trumper comment. I'm perfectly fine with you criticizing Trump, but your TDS is off the charts and it's making this channel unwatchable. So you're not perfectly fine with me criticizing Trump, right? Because none of the things I say are wrong. Right? Like, they were wrong stuff. For me to have derangement syndrome, Trump derangement syndrome, I would have to be wrong about something. And I would have to care. And I don't care. Like, I'm not emotional about it. Sometimes I enjoy talking about this stuff. Sometimes it's, it's just, in your face that everything is going to shit. I mean, the apocalypse is on us, and sometimes that's stressful. It is what it is. But I don't really have much of an emotional reaction to any of these things, especially the politics stuff. Trump is, it just became a joke the last so many years, an obvious joke with Trump and Biden, two clowns. But I don't care, and I don't have a problem with stuff. Let me read that again because it's just so fucked up. I'm perfectly fine with you criticizing Trump, but your TDS is off the charts and making this channel unwatchable. You also like to point out that Trump calls it. Oh, let's get back to the first part here. I'm perfectly fine with you criticizing Trump, but your TDS is off the charts. You're not perfectly fine with it because you wouldn't be writing this fucking long ass comment. You're butthurt about something. And it's words that I say, right, that have no bearing on you because you just turn them off. You don't have to listen to it. And so whatever you're upset about, your remedy is not listening to me, right? Like, you can just turn it off. You don't have to, if you're upset about it, it's probably because I'm right and you don't want to admit it. Yeah, what I'm saying is bothering you because you're full of shit, right? You're full of shit and you want to stay full of shit, and somebody's told you something that's making you realize that your beliefs are fucked, and you're upset at yourself and you're taking it out on me or whoever the person is, and that's just weak, right? When you're writing these kind of comments that you're upset about something, it's because your beliefs suck. Because I have no bearing on the outcome. I'm not going to do anything to change Trump. I'm not going to do anything to change the next election or any of these things. I have no power at all, politically and socially. And the only thing that I could possibly affect is that if people listen to me and they start doing some sort of spiritual practice, which is unlikely to happen. And so, let's get back to it. I'm perfectly fine with you criticizing Trump, but your TDS is off the charts. It's making this channel unwatchable. You also like to point out that Trump calls himself a Christian, but can't quote anything from the Bible. But you go on and on about all of this India spirituality BS and believe Jesus went there and learned how to do whatever despite there being no real evidence for any of that happening. There's much evidence of him going to India as him doing any of the bullshit that's in the Bible. Like, it's happened 2,000 years ago. They have zero evidence of any of Jesus' stuff, right? No evidence of the miracles. This is all just a story. And they have changed the story dramatically. There is some documentation that somebody came from, I don't know, Israel or something and went to some ashram that fits the description of Jesus. And there's some evidence that the wise men, 3 wise men, were from India and Jesus came to learn from them, and that was some sort of thing. But the biggest evidence is that all spirituality has gone through India. Like, India is the home of spirituality. It's, a material pit right now. You can make fun of the movies. You can make fun of the lifestyle and everything that India is now. Whatever it is, the culture. But their history of spirituality is second to none. It just is that. And it's the best place to learn how to meditate and connect to God. And they've done research on yoga and things like this. And it far exceeds anything that was done in any other culture, any other religion, at least in modern history. Why do you think Britain called India the jewel, their crown jewel? India was so far more advanced technologically. There are inventions that are still being used today. They discovered zero in mathematics. There's things, they discovered the soul, the Atman. And this has all been documented in ancient Vedic texts and things that are out there that are, thousands of years old, and they're from, an older time period. This is the kind of documentation that you get, but they've discovered this Indus civilization that's 30,000 years old. India's had epic places there, and you can find temples and things that are, beyond imagination, things that are carved out of rock that we couldn't do today, right? Things like this. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But for people who say America is number one, we're the greatest country on earth, it's because of our military, it's because of our materiality. It's not because of our people. Our people aren't the greatest people on earth. Our people suck, right? They're arrogant and entitled. I mean, all of us. We're not, the nicest people. We're not the smartest people. And we're kind of arrogant and immature and all these things, right? And we're not spiritual. And the European culture has never been really spiritual. There's very warlike. White people are more warlike than other people and more, weapon-oriented. So, there's things that we have, in our cultures and the Western culture, where we can say we're greater than other cultures, like materially and militarily and these other things, but spirituality not. We're not good at spirituality. We're not good at God. Our religion's very materialistic. It's very immature. The teachings are very remedial. And so, people who grow up in it, just like this person who thinks they have to vote, and people who grow up as a Christian and never realize that there's other things out there. And there's Jesus' real teachings that are out there. But none of that stuff's documented. So, you're saying to me I can't prove that he's gone to India. I don't give a shit. Jesus wasn't the greatest spiritual person ever lived. Far from it. He was on the first rung of spirituality. For that place and that time, it was great. And then, something took over his story, hijacked his story, and made it into the bullshit religion that it is today. It's not a good religion. The Old Testament, the way that God's treated in the Old Testament, I mean, it's just there for anybody to see. But if all you know is one thing, then how are you gonna say the other things aren't better, right? But what I have to offer here, you haven't even heard before, and you're already like, oh, that's bullshit. You've never even contemplated it. That's bullshit. I have fucking bullshit, right? Because you don't want to look at your. Well, here, let's go back to it. The India spirituality BS believe Jesus went there and learned to do whatever despite there being no real evidence for any of that happening. Well, this, all the evidence of the Bible is just hearsay. Jesus might not have even lived. I believe he did from, whatever. Yes, people want to put their own country first for a change because we're tired of being screwed by the rest of the world and being their piggy bank doormat and just up. Okay, so this person thinks America, this is the America First video that this person's responding to. And, I was saying, see, they can't even understand this simple concept that's narcissistic, right? Saying that being America First is narcissistic. Dumbfuck Trumpers, Trump is appealing to your lower nature and afraid of God. I've spelled afraid wrong. I got to go back and fix that. But, America First is narcissistic, but he believes that America is being screwed over by all these other countries. And we're stuffing 25% of the world's resources in our ghoul holes. I mean, we're fucking devouring the world's resources. We're 5% of the population, and we have so much more. And go to these other countries. Go to the countries and look at the poverty. I've seen it in India. You go to see it even in Europe and these other places. Europe isn't the best example because there's wealth there. But they don't have the lifestyle that we have. They don't have the run. We have fucking waterfalls in our bathrooms. We got giant fucking tubs and hot tubs, and even people with fucking no money can afford a fucking hot tub or something. People have houses and home ownership, where these other people are stuffed in these little cities and have these small ass apartments with fucking black mold and shit and old time stuff. I mean, it's just people don't understand the level of lifestyle you have as an American, and so many millions of people have that lifestyle. compared to other places. Like even our homeless people and poor people have things that other countries don't have, right? I mean, we're falling in terms of being a third world country, but we still have a shit ton of the world's resources, and we have a totally different lifestyle. So how the fuck are the rest of the people screwing us over? Because Trump said, told you that, you dumb fuck, right? Like, this is dumb fuckery 101. Like, do some fucking research. It's been known for 40 years that America is taking 25% of the world's resources. So the other fucking, we're 300 million people, right? So the other 7,200,000,000, 300 million people are have to share 75% of the world's resources. And we have, and that's, we're 5%. The other 95% of the people have to share 75% of the resources. And there are other countries that take a shit ton too, and lots of rich people that take a fucking lot. So there's all these people sharing almost no resources. How the fuck are we getting screwed by the rest of the world? This is why, and I'm not calling people personal dumb fucks, but, you can own the title. Jesus was there, learning how to. Yes, people want to put our country first for a change because we are tired of being screwed over by the rest of the world and being their piggyback bank and doormat and just straight up being used and being turned into a third world nation. But I guess you love India so much, you're perfectly fine with America being turned into the most disgusting place on earth. Well, next to India. I know I'm a bad excuse for a Christian, but the hate coming out of your mouth towards Trump and his supporters, I know for a fact it's definitely not Christian, and Jesus does not approve. I don't know, Jesus might call you guys dumb fucks. I mean, I don't know if Jesus would use the word dumb fuck, but whatever Hebrew fucking Arabic word that he would use would mean dumb fuck in, maybe in a nicer way. Because Jesus dealt with dumb fucks who loved him and crucified him, which is going to inevitably happen with Trump, right? Trump is going to be, crucified at some point. They're already starting to turn on him. Someone sent me a video of Steve Bannon and some MAGA people are already talking about him with the Jeffrey Epstein. So wait till the dumb fucks turn on Trump, and that's going to be great because, that'll be looking, crucify him. That's the same shit. Like, you think the dumb fucks that crucified Jesus, same kind of dumb fucks that, believed in Trump delusionally, and then, of course, I'm not comparing Trump to Jesus, obviously. It's the same thing. Anyways, I'm a bad excuse for a Christian, but I hate coming out of your mouth towards Trump and his supporters. I know for a fact, definitely not Christian, and Jesus does not approve. Where have you been for the Obama years and the Biden years that all of a sudden, all of this horrible things that were happening that Trump is saying he's going against, like the majority of this country is against, is now a bad thing? I shit all over Biden for years. I don't know, when I was the guy who, my channel took off in a video that was entitled a 95% chance that Michelle Obama is a man. And that got 2 million views. That was my biggest video. It changed the trajectory of this channel. I watched the video as a goof by some right-wing dopes that was kind of interesting, but it had flaws in it. And I did a video about that. I did my own research into it. And so I called Obama's wife a dude, which would have made him gay. Could have been a dude. And I started that whole fucking nightmare thing that happened, which of course I'm not proud of. But we all know what came of that. The trans investigation, all that shit that happened. There's a lot of stuff that happened, and I was the catalyst for that. And so I shit all over Obama and Biden, and was less so about Trump in his first term because he pissed off the liberals so much. So you're making it sound like I just turned into an asshole, right? Like I'm just became, say things like dumb fucks, and then I'm able to say that now because YouTube's taken away their restrictions because they don't care anymore because Trump's president for now, and then they'll go back the way it was before. But either way, if you've been, this person says, here, I've been subscribed for years, but I no longer will be because your psychotic leftism is off the charts, and I want no part of it. If you hate the people who want to make this country great again and prosperous, that maybe it's time you pack up and head over to India since it's so amazing there. Okay. Okay, Binky. And so you obviously haven't been subscribed for years because I haven't changed. It's just that I've dealt with dumbfuck Trumpers now when they were, called QBs and when they were called flat earthers and all these things. The right-wing part of the truth community. I don't deal with lefties, which thank God, and if I make fun of them regularly, but it's low-hanging fruit, and that doesn't have anything to do with anything right now because Trump is president. But the Trumpers should all realize that Trump's a piece of shit and, the rest of it. And, this person's, what they said about me and talking about India, they've watched some of my videos. They've watched some video where I talked about Jesus going to India, so there's something there. But obviously they either don't understand my videos or haven't watched enough of them. So they haven't been subscribed for years. And, just go somewhere else. Like, you don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Like, what are you offended at, right? If you're not a dumb fuck, then this doesn't apply to you. Only the dumb fuck should be insulted, right? Only people who are dumb fuck Trumpers that have all the evidence in front of them and refuse to believe it. They're the only people that should care about what I'm saying here. Everyone else should be fucking fine and dandy with it. Because, it's not some big deal. Like, fucking who cares, right? I mean, you got to admit that it's harder and harder to make excuses for Trump if you take into consideration all these things. And, he can't make just stupid stuff. I hope that person's like a paid shill and not an actual person that still believes in this, but they're around because they just can't do anything more. Anyways, I got to wrap this one up. I got work to do. Okay, it's Sunday, July 13th still. I'm going to do a little bit more voiceover here about this stuff with Trump before we get into more stuff. The thing about the dumbfuck Trumpers, and one of my viewers left a comment I just read. At this point, dumbfuck might be a little bit too generous. And I don't know if they were quoting me, because I said that. But maybe they were. Maybe they came up with that, like parallel ideas. But the thing about it is, the real problem with the Trumpers is, and it's no longer about Trump, because Trump is doing what Trump does. And like I said, I'm one of the few people that's saying, maybe the only person saying, I believe he's doing God's work. Not intentionally. He's doing it like a buffoon would do it. But still, that's still God's work, which is bringing down a system that needs to be brought down. And if he wasn't going to do it, someone else would. And it's collapsing on its own, right? But the thing about the dumbfuck Trumpers is this. They were so sure of themselves. They were so positive that their worldview and this shit that their internal world that Trump was spitting back at him out of his big fat ghoul hole was so legitimate, and that if their worldview was put in place by the government and the president, that it only could result in one thing, and that was make America great again. If you have any sort of common sense and critical thinking skills, and not listen to all the, like that comment I just read, the guy's comment, about just regurgitating Trump's bullshit, and about how the rest of the world's screwing us over and terrorists are the only reason, you don't listen to the fucking spiel. America would never be made great again the way Trump is saying. Trump thinks about the days of manufacturing, but the days of manufacturing, Americans were much poorer, and there was a lot of immigrants coming in, migrant labor that was welcomed here, right? It was basically slave labor. And you look at how these people died, just the Italians and the Irish and the Chinese and all these, various other countries that where people were coming to America for the land of opportunity, and they were just, basically coming as slaves, right? They were the new slave labor. We had slave labor, and then slavery became illegal, and then they had immigrant labor that was similar to slave labor, and people who were so desperate. And Trump is trying to get rid of those desperate people now in some bizarre thing, thinking that fat, lazy, entitled Americans are going to compete with Chinese labor, right? Which, poor third world labor. In those countries, the people are so desperate that they'll, do this kind of work. But in America, it's just not happening. And the other piece to this is when we got computers and we got the internet and we got cell phones and now AI, you can't go back from that and the effects it has on people. A lot of the complaints about America going to shit is because kids are spending all their times on screens and all these types of things. Trump is making a huge investment in AI technology and cryptocurrency. And so you can't go back to a time before that. Like I said in my voiceover on the, it's called The End is Near. It's my first video that's on Spotify. And that's like the only one that's different over there, the first one. And, I was talking about how we've had multiple apocalypses. Like when we got a phone and we got telegraph, we got, there's world before the cell phone and the world after. There's a world before the internet and the world after. There's a world before AI and the world after. And, I'm talking to people all the time who are using AI. People my age or, around my age, and certainly younger people. And it's not, everything's going to change with AI. Just like everything changed with the internet. And you can't go backwards. You can't, and all the effects of those things on the people and how it affects people and what it does to the people. And you can't go back to a time where people were coming to America desperate, and Americans themselves were poorer, and we had a different sort of an income and these things, different sort of a monetary system. And so I don't know what Trump thinks about when America was great, but it's not going back to that ever. And him thinking that manufacturing can come back to America only if you make Americans real poor and desperate, and they all will work these shitty jobs that that none of them want, right? No American wants to do these difficult factory jobs. Like factory jobs are good jobs, right? They're hard jobs and they're tedious jobs, and you can make a lot of money doing something that's oftentimes dangerous. And it used to be really dangerous. People used to die. My daughter was doing she was reading about World War II pilots. Maybe it was right before World War II. And these pilots were dying like all the time. They hadn't figured out the aircraft carrier shit yet. And they were going down. I mean, they were just like fucking, like they were just dropping like flies, like hundreds of them. Or, more than that per year were just dying because the planes didn't fucking work. They were blowing up and, they're breaking down. They couldn't take off. I mean, couldn't get off the ground. And all these things, people were like human guinea pigs. Oh, you want to be a pilot? Sure, you can come over here. And they most of them died from accidents and things and the malfunctioning. Joe, the Forgotten Kennedy, he died from some bomb that was actually set off over the Atlantic Ocean. And he was already done all his missions. The elder brother of JFK and RFK, Joe. And it's a famous story. I watched this movie called Joe, the Forgotten Kennedy about him. And, I mean, you can say it's heroic, but it's also, life was cheap, right? I think I told this story recently. When I was a kid, there was these Pinto cars, and there was the Gremlin and the Pinto. They were same body type. The Ford Pinto, I believe, is Ford. And they were very ugly cars, compact cars, very cheap cars. And they've discovered a flaw. And, they show all these cars blowing up in movies where the gas tank explodes, and that almost never happens in real life, right? Unless you've set the car on fire or something. But this thing actually did it. They had a flaw in the car, and if there was an accident and it hit this flaw, whatever, the car would just explode. And they figured out the number of accidents that were likely to happen. And they valued each human life at $160,000. And they looked at all the what they were going to have to pay out in terms of, these payouts for wrongful death. And they realized it wasn't worth doing the recall. Like they would save more money just by people dying and paying them off. And this was a 60 Minutes story. They busted them. Like it was back when there was, some different, like more journalistic integrity than we have now. Maybe not the best journalism, but better journalism. And, that's, people were thinking that way. These people were thinking about, we're going to basically murder these people with these death traps that we're setting out on the road, and we're just going to pay them off rather than recall them and save some lives, right? And so this is how people were then, is how people are now. Powerful people, and people don't, not just in terms of value human life, but the quality of life, and taking people away from what's best in them and degrading them, all the stuff that's happening. And none of that shit was ever going to be made great again, right? You can't turn back time. And it wasn't great then. It's just some illusionary world that Trump imagines. And so it was always a flawed idea. And he doesn't even give a shit about making it great again. This is just a line that he says to these people so he can, get money and power. And I mean, he's monetized his presidency and he's made it all about himself. He's a selfish prick. And he's worked all these people who are so sure of themselves and so sure of him, and they just won't admit they're wrong, right? And this is the sad part. People are writing comments saying you don't see as many MAGA hats around, and the MAGA people are starting to go into their holes like groundhogs. But they fucked up in a big way. Not because this was going to happen one way or another, but they joined this cult, and now here are the results, right? And they have nothing to say to any of us, right? Because Trump's a piece of shit. He's taken down the country and the world, and it's not him alone. It was going to go down with or without him, but he's the face of it, right? He's the face of the apocalypse, and it's kind of funny, kind of it's entertaining. There's interesting things about it, right? But to buy into that shit and believe that he was something other than he is when he's just telling you every second of his life, every time he gets in front of a microphone, what a piece of shit he is, and you still bought into it. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. So it's Monday, July 14th, and the early, looking at YouTube in terms of the recommended videos, there's already mainstream liberal coverage of Trump imploding. And Laura Ingraham and other people upset about it. The Trumpers imploding on Trump. And I just want to add to what I was saying last night. I was a little bit tired and I missed my central point. That you never know what a person's going to do. Like, there's people in your life you can trust and to be consistent or whatever. But even they're going to have their moments where they just act irrationally or they change. There's some kind of a change with who they are as a person. And you're like, I can't believe this is coming out of you. Something emerges from their internal world, like something like that, right? And, that is prevalent with every person. I've talked about dormant samskaras, things that are looking for the right environment to flower, these past impressions. And people get power, somebody you see this like four buddies get a job at the same company, and one of them becomes boss, and the other three buddies think that they can sort of take advantage of him or whatever. He's going to, allow them to fuck off or whatever. And the guy just changes, and then they're like, no, it ruins their friendship and all these things because he has this power as the boss. Like it's just some, inner asshole emerges from him. So you never know what people are going to do. But with Trump, you never knew he was going to do in the first term because he's all over the place. He says things, he says stupid shit all the time. He's all, he doesn't really have a dogma or a steady character or, a way of being about things. He's very arbitrary, right? There was, when my ex was going through a divorce, there was custody issues and stuff, prolonged custody issues and things, post-divorce stuff. And her lawyer was like, you gotta avoid going in front of judges because judges are just arbitrary. They hear one or two things. Oftentimes they don't hear, they don't hear the whole story. And they just make impulsive decisions, right? And, it's like Trump is like that guy who's like the fat king sitting on a throne, Jabba the Hutt, slopping out, eating a fucking turkey drumstick, right? Grease all over his face and his hands, off with his head, just random shit without knowing any of the story, right? Just, and that's how Trump is as a person. And he said all kinds of things in his first term that never came to fruition. And then other things he didn't say, he did. And you never know. He's got his handlers, and you knew he's going to back Israel. Like there's things like that, and which is itself is a red flag, especially for people in the truth community. But he was, going to do all these things that, maybe were somewhat predictable. But for the most part, you didn't know. Like no one knew how far he was going to go in on tariffs, right? Because he says a lot of things and he doesn't, back them up. I mean, he's just all over the place, and he's impulsive. And so that was something you would know about him. Like anybody else, everyone else kind of knew about him. Like the left, I'm sure, isn't is shocked that he's doing all the things that they hoped that he would do in terms of his, the things that were nightmare things. Like nobody thought he would go full Trump the way he's going. They warned against this, but they were just using fear and just hitting the panic button. And they, all the things that they said about Trump that were horrible, and all these things that they said they was going to do, he's pretty much checked every box and then some, right? And so they're like celebrating because it's like Christmas Day for them. They're relevant again. People are watching their news. They can now just report stuff instead of making shit up, right? So, like I said, and this is, the Trumpers should have known this. Like, if you voted because you're like, oh, maybe he'll be a little bit better, Biden's killing the country, sure, that's one thing. But when you fully believed in him and you joined the Trump cult, and now you're realizing that you got fooled, you were difficult to deal with. You were difficult to deal with when you were a flat earther, and then when you were a QB and you were a right-wing person pretending to be a truther. You caused problems in the truth community. You were difficult in terms of the comment section. Your demands of your, the stuff, the content that you wanted to align with your fucking beliefs and your stubbornness and your myopic. You're very much like a Trump personality. And so that's where the dumb fuck is a generous nickname, right? Because he's doing the opposite of what you hoped he would do. And it was obvious that was probably going to happen. Like he was, whatever he was going to do, it wasn't going to be what he promised, because he never does. And now he's sitting there like little Lord Fauntleroy, all hurt because he's like, I'm doing such a great job and you guys are fucking mad about this stupid Jeffrey Epstein thing. When, he doesn't realize that most of the stuff he's doing, you guys didn't ask for. The Trumpers didn't ask for. And now he's, he's getting the backlash. Anyways, let me just want to add that stuff, the obvious stuff that, was there for everyone to see. And then just the self-assuredness, the desperation where you're so desperate that you can't hear any other possibility because you're just so sure of yourself, even though it's on fragile. I mean, there's nothing to hold on to with this guy. There's nothing that you could ever be secure about this person. You have people like that in your life. You have the steady people who are, predictable and dependable. And, they can have their moments, like I said. And then you have the other people that you can never count to come through. Okay, so we were having a moment here where, I've been traveling and there's a whole thing. So I got to get this video done. It's going to be up a little bit later. And I'm doing a second video on the community thing. Maybe I'll put that in the beginning of the video. But anyways, I'll do a little introductory voiceover here because I have the voiceovers I already did. But MAGA world is imploding, right? And so the dumb fucks are realizing they're not realizing they're dumb fucks. And that's the sad thing, because, it's good to realize. We all have moments where we're being dumb fucks. We have moments where we're being stupid and, where we're, lying to ourselves and, whatever. And so it's going to be hard for them to accept their responsibility in this. That they followed a guy who is a piece of shit, right? And, some of Trump's many faults and flaws that he has as a person, he only has a very few assets. The number one is being able to sell. It's himself. He's being able to sell a load of shit, right? That's not based in reality. And he has that ability. He can do that. We've seen it. But what he can't do very well is govern and do the work that's necessary for himself and other people. He can't be a good president. And he can't deliver on his promises, right? He told these people who have a very faulty worldview, something where, they see changes coming, and he's been saying to them, hey, the changes aren't coming, right? And, we can change it for the way we want it. And I actually care about the way that, which he doesn't. I understand what you want and what you think, and I agree with you, and I can deliver that for you. And that's just not true, right? So that's make America great again. It's not a real thing. It's not fucking a real thing at all. It can't happen. Trump doesn't want to do it. He doesn't understand it. He understands what people want to hear, and he says it. And he doesn't really believe it because he doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't have real beliefs. And he's very defensive. And when he gets caught out, there's people who get caught out lying and doing something sneaky, and their first thing to do is attack and to go on the offensive. And he's not going to take the feedback he's getting from these people who were once his loyal followers well, because he doesn't like bad news. He doesn't like to be told that he's a piece of shit. He doesn't want who he is mirrored back at him. And so he's going to look at it like these people are disloyal because, they're not adhering to his worldview and telling him he's the god that he thinks he is, right? He's delusional about all this stuff, and so is his supporters. And so it's this great moment where that becomes evident. And, just like when the Elon Musk and Trump relationship went south and then got better, that's what these two parties are going to want to have happen. Because the Democrats, are an alternative. There's no alternative for these people. They're not going to become Democrats, and they believe in the political process. So they're floundering, right? They're in free fall. So let's start here. This happened yesterday on Morning Joe.
That Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? There's...
that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
Which he is now. So that's Kash Patel saying he now has, that's him in the past saying him in the future, now has direct control over that book. And then, of course, Pam Bondi as well. But the Jeffrey Epstein's list that they said, he's confirming is there as a former FBI guy, or as an FBI guy who now is in charge of the FBI. And so that's important to know, right? He's confirming that they have it and that he now has it, right? He would then inherit that when he becomes the director of the FBI.
What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
Okay, so I covered this maybe within the last month. And I was covering something else, I can't remember, but it was when Trump was, this was about when Trump came out and said he protected Hillary Clinton. I was looking for that, and I found this. And I covered this because I thought this was very interesting. This was, when the Epstein stuff was definitely clear that Trump wasn't going to release it. But he was asked about all these things, releasing the UFO files, I think, and definitely the JFK and the other files, maybe Martin Luther King, some of these other things, right? That, and so this came up with that. So then he responds by saying this isn't as important. And like all these other people are, Kash Patel was very animated about it, as was that guy Bongino, whatever his name is. It's weird I can't pronounce it or remember it, but it's just that. Bongino and this other, all these other people are passionate about this subject. Trump not very passionate about Jeffrey Epstein files coming out, right? This is before the election. And he knows, he's been told that this is something that his followers really want. And so he's already trying to downplay it here. All right, so every once in a while, my computer used to do this and stopped doing it, where I'm using the ScreenFlow app. And it records my voice fine, and it records the video voices at the same, at a regular volume. And then it just switches and it records these the video clips in a very, almost like it's background noise. And it's trying to, do filtering or something, which sucks. I don't know if it's a component of the microphone or what. There's two different mics. There's a mic inside the computer that's recording the voices of these people. And then there's my handheld mic. But to make a long story short, I went to eat breakfast. I came back and I realized the video that I had been recording here, some of that had already happened. So I have to redo this. So I might say things twice because It's a whole thing. So here, this is, we'll get into it again, get interrupted again. But Kash Patel has Kash, I guess this is his merch when he was a podcaster, his own Kash merch. Like he's just a fucked up guy. He's got those fucked up eyes, which one of the comedians was going to point out. I'm not going to show you that, but it's, I heard that was being made fun of. But, let's get back to this thing.
Files are.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because.
So less so. Why less so, right? Because he's going to tell you why less so. But if you talk to the average Trumper, and again, I hope I'm not repeating myself because there's that glitch out, and I have to now redo all this. I have to say all the things I already said, and sometimes it, I don't know where I said what, and I can't remember. It's a whole thing. But in terms of the Trumpers, if you listed UFOs and RFK, and JFK assassination, and any of these other things that are things cover-ups, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories about them. Good ones, like real ones, not the way conspiracy theory is used now as a way to demonize people. But the conspiracies that people are concerned about, Epstein is number one for Trumpers. 90% would say it's the most important, maybe 100%. They're most concerned about Jeffrey Epstein. But Trump is saying it's less important than these other ones. And all of his people were very vehement about how important it was. And they were marketing this to the people who were, Trump supporters because they knew it was important to them. So that's the first piece, right? Like he's trying to minimize this thing. I don't know. I guess I would. Like he's already getting cold feet about it.
Would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
What, the world of pedophiles? And so when Trump, let's go to the comment here. Let's pull it up here. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. Trump booms from a speakerphone. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. So Trump liked young women. He got that beauty contest thing he was going, whatever it was. Trump liked young women. Miss Teen USA, he was flirting with those girls. He used to go into their dressing room, according to various sources. I mean, these were Miss Teen, like these were teenage girls, in their early to late teens. And so when he says he likes them on the younger side, he knew back then. No doubt about it, it's Jeffrey Epstein enjoys his social life. And so, Jeffrey enjoys his social life. Trump knew this guy. And, the only excuse they have for him, the Trumpers, is that when he found out who Jeffrey Epstein was, he's admitting, that this was a long time ago when he posted this, right? This, whenever this news article came out, wasn't when this was, the news article was released in 2015, so 10 years ago. But this was when Trump was running for president, and they brought this back up, right? So this had been maybe another 10 years or 5 years before that, and then all this stuff. Because, it was a scandal in 2015, so probably even 10 years ago. Whenever he said that, right? And he knew for quite a long time, and, he didn't care. Right? He didn't care about what kind of guy Jeffrey Epstein was. And he was intimate with the guy. They had a relationship, and they spent time together. There's videos and pictures of them, lots of them. And so there's that. Like, we all know that that's part of it, right?
There's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would. This isn't. Okay, so
he thinks he would. So here's the thing about, here's got Fishboy going. Here's the thing about it, right? So, a number of people are saying Mossad. And I just don't care about these things because you never get to the bottom of it. And they're never going to give you the truth. And it just goes sideways when the QBs and all the dopes get involved. And, people are passionate about this. But human trafficking is a huge part of life beyond Jeffrey Epstein. Like, this has to do with the elites. And, these people never get punished. And, this kind of thing. All this stuff that's there. And they're never going to get punished. And we see it right now. They're never going to get fucking punished. It's not happening. The list isn't coming out. Like, they realize whatever information they have about Jeffrey Epstein. You know, you're going to see all these comedians. I have some clips of it, and Tucker Carlson did the same thing. We're all saying, well, Jeffrey Epstein was innocent, right? There's no evidence. There's nothing. Like, this is all a fucking hoax. And they know people are going to react to it. They know their supporters are. All these things. They know this is what's up. But in all that, they are, willing to take a hit on that because they know that the truth is much worse, right? And whatever is going to be revealed. And so if this is, and again, I'm hoping I'll repeat, well, I'll review that. I don't think I said this before. But if this is, if he's a Mossad agent, which a lot of people are saying, which makes sense. Jeffrey Epstein was someone who didn't have money, and all of a sudden he was made into a billionaire. No one knows where his money came from. And he had access to all these people. Celebrity actors, famous people, media people, and politicians. All American, and the British, we know this with Prince Andrew. Like, Prince Andrew is not a fucking, he paid $12 million. So, like, there's some human trafficking there, right? And Ghislaine Maxwell, like, she's in jail. So he did something, right? And so, if he's, has all this money, human trafficking of this nature, being with underage girls, is not such a big thing for these scandals. Like, everyone's been desensitized to this kind of immorality. There's lots of people that wouldn't be enough to blackmail them, right? And so, what's he doing for Mossad? I mean, if you understand what Israel has done, they have stolen American nuclear secrets to, doing spying. I mean, numerous things. This is just some of the highlights and things we know about. But Israel got their nuclear program by stealing American nuclear secrets, right? They also had people like the guy who was producer of the Fight Club, and you can look all this stuff up if you're interested, but it's kind of an interesting story. The producer of the Fight Club, he he made a number of other films, and it came out that he was an Israeli spy. Now he's in Israel. I think he's banned from America. But he was spying on people and, delivering secrets for Israel. We know about USS Liberty, where Israeli planes tried to sink an unarmed American communications vessel during the Six-Day War, and that's the whole thing. And those guys, hate Israel, the guys who were on board. Killed multiple sailors. Guys' arms and legs were on the thing. They torpedoed the boat. Brutal. That was an act of war. And, in fact, if you know the story, there's a good documentary about the USS Liberty from Al Jazeera. There was, again, the mainstream media doesn't cover it, but there was Israel realized that they weren't going to. They were trying to sink the ship because they didn't want America to know that they had done it, and then they were doing a false flag and going to blame it on Egypt. And after the JFK assassination, if you want to know, anything about what the motivation was of Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, he said, when this ship was getting bombarded, and they didn't know it was Israel yet, they scrambled all their jets to go bomb the shit out of Egypt, because they thought Egypt was doing this, right? But it was not, and it was one of the other Muslim countries. But when he found out it was Israel, he pulled everything back because he was probably aware that the last guy that went up against Israel was his former boss, who took a bullet to the head, right? And so this is the kind of acts of war. Of course, the 5 dancing Israelis that were there documenting 9/11 with the camera, all these things, that there's this element of them spying. And if they put this guy Jeffrey Epstein to spy on politicians and American famous people and gather information and maybe blackmail them and run a human trafficking, that would be fine. And if America was complicit in this in some way, and they knew about it and covered it up, that would blow up fucking America right there, right? And certainly Israel would be, you would have to say that they're capable of anything, and they've been fucking us over for years, and that relationship would have to be terminated. Of course, Trump is owned by Israel in one way or another. And so, that makes the most sense. And these things that people are alluding to as a possibility, right? And, for Trump, I mean, if he was engaged with this guy, he's probably, and he knows this. He's, even back when all of his cronies were out there saying Epstein, 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 Trump is like, well, maybe, I guess so. I don't know. Could hurt a lot of innocent people. A bunch of bullshit stuff in there, probably about me even. I don't even know. Like this fucking bullshit he's doing, right?
World. But I think I would.
This isn't about Epstein or 9/11 or JFK or RFK. It is, but it isn't. It's about a bigger thing. If you're lying about that, you're lying about everything.
Yeah, you're lying about everything. That's what this is about. And every truther has to come to terms with this, that you're lying about your biblical stuff. Everything that you've been told is a lie in one way or another. It's a controlling system that is deceiving you of your divine nature, deceiving you of your true purpose. And it is being orchestrated by various forces that are so deep in this thing now they can never tell you the fucking truth. And if you knew the truth and people could accept the truth, everybody knows the truth, they just won't accept it, the system would end, right? That's what this is all about. Like the truth community, that's what the truth community is. When you realize you've been lied to about everything and it's affected you, it's warped your perceptions, and you're never going to be 100% truth oriented because you've been lied to since you've been, just like Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a fucking lie. Like all these things. Like we all know it's a lie, but we participate in it. Some of us, most of us. And it's so fucking, you're lying to your kids, right? People lie to their kids all the time. And so if you ever watch the show Impractical Jokers, sometimes they have like this bit in where they get adults to lie to kids. Or they get adults to lie to other people. And it's not that hard to get done. Like the sketches, whether you believe them or not, if it's whatever, that's organic, they can get people to lie. And there's an experiment they had to get rid of where they had people in another room screaming, and subjects they would press the electrodes they were electrocuting these people basically, and it was fake. They were the ones who were being experimented on. But they were told these people needed to be shocked, and they were doing it, and it was a way to show that, the Hitler stuff or any of these things that happened, that people would just knuckle under to someone in authority. And people are screaming in the other room, and people were shocking them. And then they found out that the people weren't screaming, and that they were just under, they were being studied on what they were willing to do to other people. And these people had psychological breakdowns. And the experiment was called immoral, which maybe kind of is, but it also tells you the truth, right? People will do fucking horrific things when powerful people tell them to do it.
Who's on the Epstein tapes, folks? Who's on those tapes? Who's in those black books? Why have they been hiding it?
And this is something Donald Trump has talked about. The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
She's just so dead inside.
Been a directive by President Trump. Everything's.
So watch this here. Like I already showed you, this glitched out, so I have to do this again, but I know it's coming. But watch her face here after she tells this lie. There's just here.
Going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
See? Just there's no belief in her, what she's saying.
Come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
She looks very insecure, right? She's like, she knows, whatever. She's very fragile there. Apparently, one of my commenters said that she's got a BA in criminal justice from some bullshit Florida school when she was a sorority girl. Just the kind of dope, unqualified dope that Trump, recruits and then uses as a weapon and a shield and then throws under the bus when things get shitty. And everyone's trying to blame her, but clearly it's Trump. And it's Trump and the people above him are saying, yeah, we're going to eat this fucking Jeffrey Epstein thing. We know people aren't going to like it, but it's better than the alternative. That's what's happened. And the MAGA people should realize they're dumb fucks at this moment because Trump has lied to them. He isn't who he said he was. He's not against human trafficking at all. He has no passion for this. He has no passion for getting the truth out about Jeffrey Epstein. And he's someone he was pals with, and he wishes Ghislaine Maxwell well. So Tucker Carlson did an interview, and I don't know if they all came up with this joke on their own, or it was something one person saw and they copied it, right? And it's an obvious joke, but this was the joke.
Yeah, you know Epstein's innocent, bro.
So, that's what they're saying, that Epstein was innocent. So I looked it up, and ChatGPT said that in 2007, Trump banned Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago from inappropriate behavior with a minor, which was, this is a good friend and a billionaire. So this was sexual abuse, right? This was sexual abuse. And, I'm sure Trump didn't do anything for the minor or whatever he did or didn't do. But this should have been reported to the police, right? Because this was a part of the behaviors that Jeffrey Epstein was exhibiting, right? And he called Jeffrey Epstein a creep, but I think it had more to do with what Jeffrey Epstein was doing to Trump. Because Trump was clearly on board with this when he said Jeffrey Epstein's like some young. And this happened at Mar-a-Lago. This abuse happened at Mar-a-Lago, and Trump covered it up. So he's complicit, at the very least, right? And there's more to that story. Of course, now we know he's covering it up again. So this is what Trump does. And so the dumbass Trumpers, the dumbfuck Trumpers, don't want to admit that Trump was always this way and that they got duped by a guy that it was obvious that this was the case. So this is the first part. This video is about the big, beautiful bill, and then it has a little bit on Epstein. It's not really that good. It's got a couple of jokes. My wife and I was listening to this as we were finding things to listen to about the Jeffrey Epstein thing. We watched a lot of comedians talk about this stuff and the Tucker Carlson thing. But Jon Stewart said this. He was talking about the big, beautiful bill and the senator for Tennessee getting a bunch of merch and things as his way of changing his vote for Trump. And that it was all performative. All these Republicans that were against Trump, it was all just his big, beautiful bill was just all performative. That the whole thing was performative. And the Democrats and Chuck Schumer celebrating changing the name from the big, beautiful bill to the act. It was all performative. And then Jon Stewart says this.
It's all pro wrestling. The only difference between...
It's all pro wrestling. Right? It's all pro wrestling.
Between that vote and wrestling is that wrestling is fun.
So this is what I've been saying forever. Trump loves the WWE. And so much of his stuff, including his assassination attempt, was straight out of WWE playbook. But this motherfucker and other people there won't say it. Whether it's Tucker Carlson or these fucking dumbass comedians who are now, calling Trump out about Epstein. If one thing's fake and they're lying about one thing, they're lying about everything. If one thing's WWE, it all is. Trump's whole convention with bringing out Hulk Hogan and Dana White and Kid Rock and that fucking goofy-ass song, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. Bullshit fucking lyrics and bullshit song. That was all WWE performance. And it's for dumb fucks. WWE is for dumb fucks, or people who want to be dumb fucks because they're tired of fucking thinking. So they watch some WWE thing just because it's stupid, right? And it's familiar. But it's for dumb fucks. It's for kids and dumb fucks. It's over the top. It's it's beyond just being fake. It's so low vibrational, low consciousness. Vince McMahon, his daughter Stephanie took, this is the great documentary about this on Netflix. And Donald Trump's a part of it because he came in and he's fighting Vince McMahon. It's a whole thing. And Vince McMahon, he shaved his head as a whole thing Trump did. He was an actor. He performed in that. Trump was into it, right? And Stephanie McMahon would do anything that her dad wanted, including having some big, overweight dude put his entire ass, her face in his ass crack. It was fucking gross. And, and I didn't watch wrestling, and I even knew about that, right? But she said there was one storyline that she wouldn't do, and it was incest with her father, that he impregnated her. This was it pushed it too far. That was the only thing she wouldn't do. And that's the fucking world that Trump wants to emulate, the low vibrational fucking bullshit world. Vince McMahon's one of the grossest motherfuckers out there. And, and his storylines, Trump doesn't have a problem with any of that shit. And he didn't have a problem with Jeffrey Epstein until Jeffrey Epstein did something that Trump kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago for. but he's owned by Israel. Trump is, and Jeffrey Epstein was most likely a Mossad agent, and they were spying on Trump. I mean, and other people, and whatever happened with that, and so that's what's up with that, right?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Flagrant. Free Ghislaine. She has been wrongly imprisoned. She was convicted guilty of something that clearly never happened.
Never happened.
After the FBI's incredible research, shout out to cockeyed Kash Patel. That mother was looking at the documents double time, and he was 100% certain that there was no RICO charge.
No foul play.
No, he's a pedophile.
But just him.
But only him.
Thousands of girls, just him.
Yeah, the guy was busy.
And that list that they said that they had was a list of one name.
Guys, what the hell is going on?
All right, so this was, and then Tucker Carlson did this similar thing, which I think I showed you in another video at the beginning of his video. Well, I can show that as well. So that was a podcast called Flagrant. It's hard to listen to because there's too many people talking at once, right, and a lot of laughing. And so it's not an easy listen. But they did have one interesting point, which is they kept on saying things like, we want to protect the victims. And, by not giving justice to the victims, that was protecting them. They don't want to re-traumatize them, right? But they're being re-traumatized by Jeffrey Epstein getting away with it again, right? This kind of thing. So that was a interesting point. But this was him doing the same bit here.
I'll speak for myself. I never thought that I would be offering an apology to Jeffrey Epstein. I think of all the times I've maligned that guy, all the times I've accused him of crimes, of blackmailing people, of trafficking children to powerful figures around the world on behalf of global intel services. And then I learned yesterday from Attorney General Pam Bondi that's totally untrue.
Yes, yeah.
The guy killed himself after 36 days in prison for no reason. He was a billionaire. Mm-hmm. He had no clients. He'd done nothing wrong other than get naughty massages 20 years before. And the guy killed himself. Another pointless death. And then
all right, so this is, these were the jokes that people were saying that, they're making him innocent, right? That there's no reason for all this Epstein stuff if there's nothing in the files, which is fucking kind of hilarious, of a fucked up thing that's happened. And it's Trump. This is all about Trump. It's not about Pam Bondi. It's not about the people above Trump. This is about Trump. And his bullshit fucking, let me show you the Don Lemons thing here. So Don Lemons has Trump's Truth Social post. He plays this circus-like music. And then there's, and he's like, what? And this person walks behind him. He's like in a hotel. And so he gives this big face, what? Like he just sucks so bad, like he's somehow being successful enough to keep going, right? the Lemon Nation. But, I want to get, if anybody has a video of the reaction to the post, I have something on Twitter. I'll show you next. But if they have reactions to this stuff from, videos of whatever, MSNBC videos of reactions of MAGA people to the actual bullshit post from Trump. But, it's just what they'll do with all this, right? And, right now it doesn't look like it's very much. Let me show you the Twitter thing here. Okay, so I went and ate lunch, went shopping, and I'm wiped out. But this is Trump's original statement. And I heard, this thing from Candace Owens came up. I've already talked about it. Americans care because there needs to be accountability. Without accountability, the same sickies that were his customers are likely still abusing children. On top of that, it's a slap in the face of many victims have come forward. Just all this stuff. But Candace Owens said this was the first time Trump was upside down on Truth Social, where the people with alternate opinions just came in and fucking railed him on his stupid fucking post there. She tried to say that it wasn't him. It was like a chat bot who, and I'm like, again, stupid shit, right? I'll cover a little bit of her thing and I'll do the Tucker Carlson thing. And then I think that's it. Maybe I had one little thing of Marjorie Taylor Greene to do before the Tucker Carlson thing. But Trump is upside down here in his, relationship with his MAGA dopes, his dumb fucks. And they're doing this, like this was going to happen. Like people did not think this was not going to happen, right? This is going to cost you so many supporters. I'm being one of them. I've never been to multiple rallies. I have been to multiple rallies and even was there on January 6th. This is one of the main things that needs to be fixed. This person, these other people. We want the elite pedos. These are all people that post stuff. And Trump was just getting fucking railed on his own fucking platform that he designed so he wouldn't get deplatformed. And they fucking owned him here. And, this is just shit that people found. But, this is him being remember he said he could shoot someone on the face of Fifth Avenue. This was the one thing that Trump couldn't get away from. All right, these two dudes.
How big of a blowback is there right now in MAGA world specifically?
It's pretty big, I have to be honest. It's just a red line that it crosses for many people. Jeffrey Epstein is literally the most well-known convicted pedophile in modern-day history. This is something that's been talked about by many people serving in the administration, myself, and many others.
Okay, so did anybody really think you were going to get the fucking truth? Did anybody think you were going to get the fucking truth? See, this goes back to the thing I said in the first, now is the first introduction. And the second introduction for me, but the very first one you heard. When I was comparing what I do here to what other people do. You weren't going to get the fucking truth about this. You're not going to get the fucking truth about 9/11. You're going to get the truth about aliens. You're going to get the truth about Palestine. You're not going to get the truth about any of this shit. Fake fucking news. It's not a one-sided thing. Candace Owens, which I'll show you in a moment. I don't think I'm going to show you that part of it. She kept on saying deep state this, deep state that. And, those are things dumb fucks say. Things like deep state. It's either all a deep state or none of it is. It isn't, there's a bunch of bad guys and a bunch of good guys. That's fucking what children say, right? Like a system like this has to be all bad. And it is all bad, right? Because look at the way that fucking people have been getting worse with each generation. And not that our grandparents and our parents were great, but we've been less and less since then. Look at what the internet's done to the kids. Look at what these kids are growing up with. Depressed and hopeless. I mean, look at the effects on them. Look at the mental abilities. Look at the physical abilities. Look at the skill sets. Look at, how people are. We're getting weaker with each generation. Why? Because the system's fucking evil and demonic. Of course you're not going to get the truth. Because, even if you got some truth about Jeffrey Epstein, it's not going to be the full truth. And the full truth, it doesn't fucking matter because he's a symptom of a demonic fucking system that's based in fucking demonic shit. And it's some worse than others, but we're all fucking addicted to the system and dependent on it. And it's filled with bad shit, right? There's pain and suffering in your clothing. The people that had to make your clothing, or the animals and the environment that suffer from the chemicals or whatever it is. There's pain and suffering in your cell phones and your computer and the people that make it and the environment that gets raped to harvest the fucking lithium and the bullshit that's in it. There's, the resources, the way they're being harvested and how it affects animal life and pollutes people's drinking water and animals' drinking water and all these things. You can't even calculate all the pain and suffering that's caused by everything that your things that you're sitting on, the clothes that you're wearing, the TV that you're watching, and all the rest of it. The fuel that you're using in your car. It has negative effects because we got a demonic system and we're gross and fucking disgusting fucking whatever we are. And this isn't coming from self-hatred. This is coming from knowing that we could be so much better and more than we are because of the system that we've created, right? And so there's no fucking, you're not getting the fucking truth. Trump and them are saying that weird fucking call from a dentist. I was like, what? Anyways, the dentist was traveling. It's a whole thing. Anyways, here's the thing. Trump and his people just said, fuck you. We're not telling you Jeffrey Epstein. Fuck you. Fuck you. You guys want Jeffrey Epstein, your conspiracy theories, you're wrong. Nothing here. Fucking nothing. Even though everything that's indicated, all the things that were said, all the evidence that was presented, all the things you've learned over the years, none of that's true. You imagine it. Fuck you. Go to sleep or go vote for Kamala next time or whatever. Like they're just saying a big fuck you. We're not going to give you anything. And you're going to have to move on from this because some other shit's going to happen over the next week and you're not going to do anything about it. So they just be angry about this for a little bit. Then you'll just be, focused on something else, right?
Tonight, growing fallout over the Trump administration effectively closing the case of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, as many of the president's supporters demand more information.
How many of you are satisfied? You can clap. Satisfied
You have the clap.
with the results of the Epstein investigation. Clap.
This weekend in Florida, Epstein,
You know, think about all the time you've wasted, you Epstein people there, on something that you're never going to get the fucking bottom of, right? You could have put that time into connecting to God. You could have put that time into meditating. You could have put that time in doing something positive, growing food, whatever it is, right? Like, how much time did you waste following this fucking story that's never going to have any sort of real fucking ending, right? And there's just all this speculation. You know, Candace Owens, which I'll show. Maybe let's move to that. I think I got that next.
Base is stupid, or again, because I don't think he's pressing send on these messages, the people around him certainly think that Trump is stupid.
What we're hearing tonight from a lot of people in the MAGA base, echoing a call from Laura Loomer to appoint a special counsel to examine the convicted sex offenders case and also the Trump administration's handling of it.
All right, you guys, happy Monday. And I don't know that I am ever going to be able to forgive Trump for making me do what I'm about to do, the unthinkable. I am going to have to defend Barack Obama. I can't believe this. That's how bad the fallout is right now over Jeff.
See, this is the first flaw. Again, there's no difference between Obama and Trump. There's no difference between, you know, they have different handlers and they have different roles to play. They have different things that they pretend to believe in. They have different people that support them. They have different, you know, groups that they represent. But there's no difference in them. There's no difference between anything in the government. It's part of one thing. It's multiple fucking selfish people all working for the same one thing, right? If you want to call that one thing the devil or the beast or the ego or whatever you want to call it, it's not God. It's the opposite of God. And it's, you know, it's a system that is parasitic and demonic, and it's, you know, it's always truth always wants to come out. The truth is always there, and not some bullshit truth of getting to the bottom of some dirty little secret. You know, the divine truth, like the positive truth, your true purpose, your true role, you know, what your true essence is, the true essence of everything, right? You know, when people say, well, let's get this a little bit farther here.
Jeffrey Epstein. It just continues. And Trump seems to be hitting rock bottom in terms of communicating on this particular topic. And I'm looking back and I want Covfefe Trump back, Covfefe Trump back. That guy seems to be gone. Also, you guys, I'm kind of worried about Tucker Carlson's life, and I'll tell you why. Welcome back to Candace.
It's Candace. It's Candace.
Where do we begin? Okay, I think we should at first start with a montage that was actually put together by Breakthrough News. It's good to do this just to remind ourselves that we're not going crazy on the topic of Epstein. Take a listen.
How is it that my father can be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one...
Yeah, how is he convicted of 34 crimes? Did he do a day in fucking jail? No. I mean, what was he paid out any of those lawsuits that he lost? You know, how did those 4 years of Trump persecution end up? Is any of those things happened? So don't pretend that he suffered something. You know, it was just some bullshit conviction. If he was convicted of those 4 crimes, why is he sitting in the fucking White House? Because he couldn't run for president if he's a convicted felon. How did he run again for president? 34 times he's excluded from running for president. You can't be president or a senator if you have a felon. And these were, you know, felonies or whatever. And so none of these things were real. Like that's stupid. But this is his dopey fucking son, because Trump didn't tell these guys that he's in the files. Like, if the files exist, this motherfucker's in them, right?
on Epstein's list has even been brought to light. I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right?
Oh, possible.
It's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right?
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it.
What's yours, fucking dude? What's yours, bro?
But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the
episode. Seriously, let's get that list. Let's get to the bottom of that list.
That is an important thing.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go ever. Ever.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things.
All the things. We have all those things.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
All of these people are in power now. All of these people could certainly release the quote unquote list. Is it exactly a list? Is it a network of contacts? Is it video footage of people that committed crimes against children? We don't know. And we may never know, which is leading some.
You're never going to know. You're never going to know. Like, what do you think? Is somebody's going to come out and then release it, right? Whatever was done, Jeffrey Epstein's, I looked at the dates again, or I heard the dates from her, which she goes through. I'm not going to show much of this, but she goes through a whole bunch of stuff. It's interesting information for people who are Jeffrey Epstein people, but it's like, that lost, this cliffhanger thing I talk about. When you suspend resolution from people, I once was listening to Rush Limbaugh, who's a piece of shit and sucked, but I could see that he was good at his job. And, I don't know why I was listening to him, but I was in the car or something, and maybe it was the only station. And he was talking about the way that you win elections. And there's one thing that always wins elections. And he was like, he went on about it, he hung it out there, and he goes, I'll tell you when we come back from these ads. And, you could tell he had his audience, chomping at the bit to know, what is it, Rush? What is it? And the answer was the conservative agenda. It's a silly answer. But I have a memory of it because I realized how good it was at withholding information. Like, this is the borderline personality disorder. The way that they find that someone has a borderline personality disorder is they give this thing them called the thematic aptitude test. And what it is these dramatic pictures. And people with a borderline personality disorder cannot bring resolution to anything. And that's why they wreak havoc with relationships and gossip, and they say all these things, and they put out information. They're always in the middle. They're always in the, they're always manipulating people in one way or another to do things, and they're always triangulating, and people never get the full story, and they never get anything resolved. And so this Epstein thing is people are desperate to get the answers, and answers you're never going to get, and now they want to know is Trump on it. Like, it just becomes more of the same thing, right? But you're not going to get it because, this isn't a real thing, right? Whatever it is, they can't tell you what the real thing is. Whatever it is, whatever the real things that they're doing, they can't tell you because then they'd have to tell you the system's demonic. And I've been saying this for quite some time now, that these people that you hate, the three-letter agencies and all these people that are doing evil shit around the world, whether those things are necessary or not, some of it is. Evil shit has to be done to keep a deceptive evil system from imploding. Truth has to be suppressed, and evil shit has to be done because this is an evil system. And nobody wants to hear that, like I said, because we're 100% dependent on it. And we don't have an alternative, right? But you're never going to get the information. Why even say that? Like, if you were going to get the information, it would be right now. And you're not, and whatever reason it is, it's because they're all fucking evil people doing evil shit to keep an evil system going, and the truth can never come out. And the truth, the real truth, is that you have a divine purpose, and you have God within you, and they're keeping you from that. They're finding ways for you to not find out what that purpose is, and not do what your soul wants you to do, and what God wants you to do, and what God wants you to become. They're taking you in the other direction, that you're becoming a demon. They want everyone to become demonic, where their egos are running amok and the soul is diminished, right?
People to ask the question, like, is Trump actually in the Epstein files? And personally, my take on that is no. But what is your...
Yeah, your take on that, Fish Girl, is no, because you voted for him. Of course he's in the Epstein files. If this is real, he's in them. Now, so she goes into the timeline. Jeffrey Epstein was first convicted in 2008, right? And he got this cushy, he was able to leave 12 hours, like these things that I knew. I reported on this long before all these other people did. When I first found out about it. This was 2-3 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago maybe. And so he got this cushy deal. He was told to get it by a guy who ended up working for Trump, whatever that attorney general is, whatever his name is, Acosta. And he said he was basically pressured, basically said that, it was indicated in some way that this guy was intelligence, right? That he was part of the intelligence community. This is stuff that people kind of speculate and know, and things that are said. But it was in 2008 he got busted. In 2007, Trump banned him from Mar-a-Lago, based in Jeffrey Epstein sexually abusing these girls, or girl there, whatever it was. And Trump was complicit in that. And it's funny that Jeffrey Epstein went to jail a year later. Trump, of course, doesn't, throws people under the bus when they have, he doesn't, he's not a good friend or whatever. And so, all this stuff. And, Trump, this was the first time he got busted. Jeffrey Epstein had been doing this for years. Trump had hung out with him, and they were both in West Palm Beach. And so Trump was also a guy who's been accused of rape in his wife's statement in divorce. His first wife, accused of sexual abuse. He cheated on all his wives. He said he could just go up to women and grab them by the pussy. All the things he said. And he said Jeffrey Epstein likes young girls. All the things, the quote I read. And he said that he's into his own daughter. So Trump is on he did something, right? He's on Jeffrey Epstein's fucking list. If there's a list, he's on it. And Trump has also never wanted this thing to come out. And he said that's bullshit about a lot of innocent people. There's some disinformation on there, but I don't know who about who. But, I don't want those people getting hurt. Who does Trump care about more than anybody else? It's Trump. And so it's all the evidence points to Trump being on the list. But because you voted for him and you're trying to say he's better than Obama, and you're trying to say that he could have been good, because you don't want to admit you're wrong. Nobody wants to admit they're fucking a dumb fuck or that they're a scumbag, because people don't want to admit any accountability for any of their decisions or actions, right?
Your opinion, because I can't reconcile this Donald Trump with the Trump that we're seeing right now, the Trump that is gaslighting the public right now, the Trump that I voted for.
They're the same Trump. Like, this is Trump going full Trump in his last term after he learned lessons in his first term, and he's, they've let him loose. But everything he's doing now, he did the same kind of bullshit in his first term. There's nothing different between Trump now or on The Apprentice. He's the same fucking guy. This is a guy that never should have been a fucking president, neither should any of the other people, because they're all selfish, narcissistic criminals.
For across multiple elections. The Epstein scandal is definitely terminal cancer to Trump's MAGA movement. There's no question about that. I actually said to my husband this week, and we were talking about it, that in order for Trump to get out of this is how bad it is, in order for him to actually make the MAGA base forget this, like potentially move on from Jeffrey Epstein, he would essentially have to come right out and repeal income tax in the United States. And then we would be extremely happy. Everyone would be very happy. And then we'd go, actually, thanks, Trump, but we still remember the Epstein scandal, and we want the list. That's how bad it is. There's just no making anybody forget about this Epstein.
But the thing they could have done is waited. They didn't ever have to release this fucking bullshit thing that they said. They didn't have to come out here and say, hey, MAGA, eat shit. Like, that's what Trump and these people did. Eat shit, right? And so...
Epstein scandal. It's a major fumble. And I want to be very clear, Trump's team knows that. Everything they are doing right now indicates that they are in panic, a full-blown panic.
Yeah, well, if they were panic, they wouldn't release the list. They would not release the list. They would have done something else, right? Like, they knew this was going to happen, so they don't give a shit. You know, they don't need you anymore. Trump doesn't need any fucking MAGA people. Maybe he wants to have rallies or whatever it is. But maybe he doesn't want to go to baseball games and get booed or whatever. But, things are going to go fucking south there in the economy. And when people are fucking realizing that the inflation's way worse and they start blaming Trump and the tariffs, it's going to be way. There's all kinds of ways that Trump's fucked in terms of these people. Trump's not running again. In midterms, he's going to get crushed. The Democrats are going to crush him. That's already set and done in stone. But, what about the other things they're going to do? War with, Iran, any of these other things I want to get to. I don't know. Is it here? Let's go a little further.
But I mean, when I say Trump's team, I kind of mean the Zionists that are around Trump and have been kind of running everything behind the scenes. Now let's back up here, because in case you missed it over the weekend, the first thing that transpired was that there was a confirmation that the footage, remember, it's supposed to be the raw footage.
Okay, so he gets into the jail thing. I just want to show you the Laura Loomer, then I'll move on to Tucker Carlson. So then there was this part here.
Even settle them down. What are we going to do? We're going to make them think that we deal with it if we just fire Pam Bondi. Laura Loomer is the one that gets the scoop on this, right? So Laura Loomer tweets out, you can pull this up. She said, scoop, FBI Director Cash.
So first of all, Candace Owens is all against Israel and Zionism. At least that's her big MO now. And, she mentions it multiple. Like I said, I haven't seen much of her, but that in this report, she says it over and over again. And then she gets into this stuff with Tucker Carlson, and I stop listening. I can show you Tucker Carlson's thing, a part of it anyway. But Laura Loomer is a Zionist piece of shit. Right? So when Caitlin Collins showed these two together and how they're against Trump, that they have complete different perceptions of what's going on, right? But this is how she's dealing with it.
Bondi has brought total embarrassment.
Oh, here, let's go back a second here. Mess this up.
You can pull this up. She said, scoop, FBI Director Cash and Dan Bongino are livid with Pam Bondi over her DOJ memo and the lack of transparency from her office regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files. Source tells me Dan Bongino is taking the day off from his job as Deputy Director of the FBI, and there's now speculation on whether or not he will return to his job at the FBI over his disgust with Blondie's lack of transparency and handling of the Epstein files. Pam Bondi has brought total embarrassment to President Trump, J.D. Vance, Dan Bongino, and Cash Patel. She's also lied to the American people. I'm told Cash and Bongino are furious with Bondi and the whole blowback has caused the blowback that she has caused them with her lack of transparency.
So remember, this was a story that broke. So, it's silly to think that Trump was ever going to fire her over this, because then the next person would have to release these things, right? Like, there's speculation here, that they can somehow target her and save the fucking MAGA base. Obviously, Trump doesn't give a shit, or the people handling him don't give a shit what happens, or they want this to happen, or they wouldn't be happening, right? Like, everybody knew this was going to fucking short-circuit the dumb fuck MAGA fucks, right? Because they're dumb and they're fucks. And this is the kind of thing that would blow their fucking minds, and it has, right? And so, like, it's all fucking silly. It's just silly because none of it fucking matters, because if it did matter, you wouldn't be seeing it, right? You wouldn't, like, everybody can now have an opinion about Trump. They certainly have an opinion about Jeffrey Epstein and then all the other bullshit that's in there. And what difference does it fucking make? What difference would it make if 95% of Americans think Jeffrey Epstein ran a pedo ring that involved a slew of celebrity media and politicians on both sides of the aisle? What difference does it make? Because nothing can be done. Are you going to just quit your jobs or just stop working and strike, or are you going to go violent and try to overthrow the government over this? No, none of these things are going to happen. What are you going to do? You're going to tweet about it. I mean, it's the American people in the world have been denuded by social media. Because you think by saying things on the internet, it makes a difference. Look at all of us who talk shit on the internet. Look at all of us bullshitters out there saying our belief systems and what we see and do. And how has it affected really anybody? other than people getting mad, people getting distracted, people getting obsessed, people getting, whatever, more involved in that bullshit that's going on that has no bearing over anything. It's just you wasting your life away listening to bullshit about things that don't really matter, that are out of your control, that are all based in deception and lies in the first place. So this dude, let's go back just a tad, just in case this dude is at the Turning Point USA.
Now, no one's allowed to say that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow
Wait, let's go back a little bit further.
And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed
Woo! Israel, woo!
To thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that. I've spent my entire life pretty much in Washington, where I knew and loved a number of people, including one very close person who worked at CIA.
You mean your boss and your handler? Because, it's speculated that he is, a lot of people in the truth community believe he's CIA.
That has never prohibited me from saying, I think the CIA has done some horrible things. Murdered a bunch of people, participated in the murder of a sitting U.S. president. It's got a whole trail of crimes. That doesn't make me a disloyal American. It doesn't make me anti-American in any sense. I was born here. My family's been here for hundreds of years. I love this country.
He loves this country. I love it. I fucking love it. I love this country. I thought about this, loving your country. It's a weird thing to say. Most people don't know what love is. Like, love is a feeling, right? Love is something that you feel in your heart. When you say I love you, do you say that when are you describing a feeling that you have in your heart, right? Like, love is, you're aware of your love. You're mentally aware that you love somebody. And then the feeling that's in your heart. And the love that you have is, this idea in the Hindu culture, Indian culture, of the divinity, namaste, the divinity within me bows before the divinity within you, which is a beautiful way of greeting. I don't think people are even conscious of how great that is in that country anymore because it's lost, but it's a great way. And so you love the love in other people. You love the God in other people. You love the God in the animals and creation, right? The beauty of God's creation. You love the fucking whatever it is, the American beauty, the America, the country, it's a beautiful country. And you might even love some of the things about America. But the government isn't probably one of them for most people. I don't think you can actually love the government, right? You can like the government, you can admire the government, you can like the power that the government gives you or gives other people. But when people say, I love America, what does that even fucking mean? That's some bullshit thing that people used to say. You better say you love America back when they forced us to pledge the allegiance to the fucking stupid-ass American flag that has, flag. You're going to pledge your allegiance to a flag? I've said this before. If you are a godly person and you're also a patriot, at some point you have to choose one or the other. Because what you need to do as a patriot goes against God's will. Like, they never are 100% aligned. Just like if you're a person with Israeli citizenship and American citizenship, at some point you have to choose between these two countries. And most of the times they choose the Israeli citizenship, right? And so it's a stupid thing to say, I love this country. Well, let's get back to this thing because this is the more important part.
Why I live here. So criticizing the behavior of a government agency does not make you a hater. It makes you a free person. It makes you a citizen. You're allowed to do that because you're not a slave. You're a citizen. And you have a right to expect that your government will not act against your interests, and you have a right to demand that foreign governments not be allowed to act against your interest. That's not creepy. It shouldn't be forbidden. And yet all of us have trained ourselves to believe that you can't say that somehow. That that's like too naughty and forbidden. And the effect...
No, you couldn't say it. But now you can. They used to cancel people the Israeli government and the Israeli lobby and the media if you said shit like that. If you accused Jeffrey Epstein of being Mossad, even up to the point where Trump was, it started to happen when people started to be able to criticize Israel over the Palestinian thing, liberals mostly. But I noticed that there was things you could say that you weren't able to say before. And so why is that? Especially when Trump is trying to suppress things and going all in on these universities. And so have they lost control of it and some of these other things, right?
Of making that off limits has been to create a lot of resentment, and I'll say it, hate online, where people feel like they can't just say, like, what the hell is this? You have the former Israeli prime minister living in your house. You have had all this contact with the foreign government. Were you working on behalf of Mossad? Were you running a blackmail operation on behalf of foreign government? By the way, every single person in Washington, D.C. thinks that. I've never met anyone who doesn't think that.
Okay, so that was the part I wanted to show you. So Tucker Carlson's saying that, he knows all these people in Washington, D.C. He can call up Trump. And everybody he's talked to in Washington, D.C. thinks that that if Jeffrey Epstein worked for Mossad.
I don't know any of them that hate Israel, but no one feels they can say that. Why?
But they don't think they can say it. So, it would be a huge thing if they came out and said Jeffrey Epstein worked for Mossad. Because now Israel's to blame for young girls being sexually abused by the elite in America, and Jeffrey Epstein was overseeing this not only as a pimp, but a blackmailer, as a human trafficker, and now he's suicided, and, Israel now is to blame. I mean, how many people would want to go to war with Israel over this? I mean, again, we wouldn't, but there would be just an outrage over the thing, right? But him saying this, I don't know if it's true or not, but they all believe this, then it's obvious that that's what it is. And most people kind of believe this, and I know Candace Owens does, and some of these other people, a bunch of these comedians I said and showed. And so all of these people believe it, and yet they're unwilling to say it. They're all complicit not only in the pedophile ring, if any of this stuff is true. I mean, based on the official story. They're also complicit of Israel running a pedophile ring of sexually abusing young people that involved the Prince Andrew, the brother of the fucking king, and numerous suicides and other things, and certainly the sitting president of the United States, who was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and as Netanyahu says, is the best friend Israel ever had in the White House. So this is fucked, right? That all this stuff is being said, and that all these people are willing to go along with that. So that's what I've always fucking said. If they're all willing to go along with this, if all these things are true, which they are in one way or another, then there's no fixing this fucking system, and this system's demonic. Where a foreign government would take some creepy motherfucking teacher and turn him into a billionaire running a pedophile ring with a private island that all these rich and powerful people would be involved with. And it kind of gets exposed by the American media twice. The guy gets, busted. $12 million is given to a young woman who's now been suicided herself from Prince Andrew. I mean, just a mess, a trail of fucking, bodies. He has a pimp he has a woman who's going out and recruiting young women, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who, she, her dad worked for Mossad or something, whatever that was. And so, this all is a big fucking mess, and nobody's willing to take it on. Well, that means because your fucking system's so far fucking gone that if they actually did expose the dirty underbelly of one little symptom of this whole fucking thing being a mess, that it would implode. So all the time you fucking people waste on this bullshit, trying to get to the bottom of things, like you're watching some fucking, some lost-like series of mysteries and unsolved, unresolved issues, when you could be doing something fucking positive with your life. Connecting to the divinity within you would be the first fucking thing, right? Which is the real truth. If you're a real truth seeker, you'd find the God within you, divinity within you, and you would connect to God and find out what that's all about. That God is the truth, right? And so, but no. So, like, this is why I, call people dumb fucks and say all this stuff, because people are just, we're crumbling and imploding, and people are just, sinking down with the system without trying to reach up and grab something and pull themselves out of the abyss that everyone else is getting pulled into. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramato, definitely pointing for the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.